Good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This is Gurpreet Korman and my co-host Tracy. And today we have an amazing topic, and that's going to be I want to talk about how you can attract talent. This is for companies, HR, talent acquisition, recruiters, and it's all we're going to talk. We've been seeing some trends happening on LinkedIn, seeing so many discussions happen about this, and it's all around where we are having a hard time finding talent. A lot of companies are struggling right now to find talent. They've doing the job postings and still can't find talent. And I've seen a lot of HR people are asking for advice on what to do, what are different avenues, and so on. So today, me and Tracy are going to be walking you through, well, what's happening in the market and why are companies facing these challenges when it comes to finding talent, and what are some action steps you can take right now to resolve this problem. So I'm going to let Tracy kick it off because I need to do something. I need to log off.
No,
I'll be back in a second.
yeah, no worries. So we wanted to discuss this today when it comes to attracting talent and how companies can go about going just beyond doing a job posting and as my business partner says all the time, doing a posting and praying sort of situation. I think, recruiting has really evolved. I know when I first came into the HR realm, it was very much an entry-level position. I think most people coming out of our HR program, we would get our little entry-level positions within recruiting. And it was always very much a downplayed sort of aspect of the HR function, even though it's probably one of the most important things that we do as HR professionals, whether we're, strictly just doing recruiting, whether it's part of the broader job. And then it, even as business owners, being able to recruit and do so in a way that is effective is challenging. And I think in many ways, we're thrown into recruiting thinking, oh, like I said, it's an entry-level position. Anybody can do it, only to find out it's probably one of the most difficult things that, anybody in business, whether you're in HR, like I said, or a business owner, has to do. It's a big job and it's a skilled job, and it takes time to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. Also, what's happening is, here's what's happening in the market. Right now, it's a candidate market. So it's no longer an employer market. So in 2020, it became a market for employers, which means that there was tons of pool of candidates looking for a job in 2020 come pandemic. And there was a shift. So this shift always happens. Sometimes it's candidate market, sometimes it's employers market. Now it's a candidate market.
Yes.
Not employers market. So that's one avenue. That's one reason why companies are kind of seeing this struggle right now. But the biggest reason why companies are struggling to find talent is because of the Great Resignation that took place starting last year. I think around mid spring. I think we started to see that shift happening when. And then there was talks about Great Resignation happening. And the reason was that because there were people that were burnt out from job during the pandemic. So they were resigning. People were resigning. People no longer want to go back to a hybrid model or come into the office. So people were looking for flexibilities. Even right now, what's happening is because of the pandemic, people are looking more about control on their life. I was hearing this radio talk and show on 640 AM radio. I forgot the individual's name, but she said something very interesting. People want control of their time, their life. They don't want to just be corporate slaves. So that is the other reason where companies are struggling. So now this is interesting because I tell job seekers not to just rely on job postings, but I say the same thing when I recruit. and when I'm working with my clients, and even when I worked in the corporate world as an HR professional, I always said we can't rely on job posting. We need to create a recruitment strategy that is going to target based to the talent you are looking for and what we want to attract. So you can't just rely on a job posting. This is like the biggest mistake I see every company making, is they post a job and they think magically resumes are going to come in, which sure they're going to come in, but are they the right resumes? Like the right talent, is the right talent applying? So the key to the success, if any company wants right now, and if you want to attract the right talent, the quality, it's not a quantity. So when you are posting a job, it becomes quantity. Like, who wants to sit there and screen hundreds and thousands of resume? I know I never wanted to do that. But here's what you can do, and that's what we're going to talk all about. But before I get into what actions you can take right now to help get you and attract the talent you're looking for, if you have any questions for me and Tracy today, any HR professionals, talent acquisition specialists, recruiters, employers, if you're struggling right now to find talent, let us know in the comment section and we will answer any questions you have. And we'll do a little Q&A if we see any questions. We're happy to guide any employers out, any employers, companies, HR, recruiters, anything to, this kind of like a brainstorming session where we are sharing our tips and advice on how you can attract talent. So piggyback off of Tracy, here's my strategy. And here's the thing, both of us are going to have different strategies. So you're in luck because two of us are, we are both talent attraction and retention experts. Hence why I collaborated with Tracy to do the HR Uncut, because we both are experts in the same work, which is attracting and retaining talent. So you're going to hear both of our strategies, tips, and advice on what you can do this very moment, the steps you can take. But keep in mind, both of us will be sharing our perspectives and they will be different, but that's the beauty of it, to make sure that, hey, because there's no one solution fit all for everybody. So my go-to strategies typically for recruitment is I leverage LinkedIn. So that's what I mean by don't just post a job. I use LinkedIn to headhunt. So if you have the time and resources to do this, then spend the time on LinkedIn to do those searches, to headhunt and approach candidates. So a cold email, right? Do the cold reach. So that's one way that you can do. You can also join LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups, and then you based on the target that you're targeting, right? So you can join, there's industry related groups on LinkedIn, and Facebook is like just opened for so many things. So you can go into these groups, and that's what I do when I recruit. I strategically join groups that where my target talent is hanging out. Like it's networking, just like we tell candidates to network, and it's all about networking. Same thing for companies. When you're doing recruitment, you need to be leveraging all the different platforms. So LinkedIn and Facebook groups. You can also use an app called Shaper. You can use networking apps to attract the talent and be engaging with them. So I used to leverage Shaper, Bumblebuzz. Meetup.com is another great platform that you can now also target. It has everything from groups, events, also like being at the events that your target talent will be attending. So these are recruitment strategies. You can now, like, we just have so much. You can join different Slack channels as well. And my biggest strategy for long-term success is you need to build your employer brand. Employer branding. Every single person in the HR team, I see this every day, and I'm always blown away and shocked at how many HR recruiters and talent acquisition specialists, including hiring managers, are not branding themselves on LinkedIn. So employer branding isn't just have a company website and have a company social media pages and call it a day. You need to leverage the employees to also build themselves as brand, and we have that platform, which is LinkedIn. So utilize LinkedIn to build HR. You need HR recruiters and talent acquisitions specialists. You need to build yourself a brand on LinkedIn, so you are attracting and building those pipelines of leads. You should have leads in your LinkedIn for the talent you are attracting. So your LinkedIn needs to be set up to be targeting. It needs to be target based, and it needs to target the talent you are looking for. Okay. And then obviously you have the networking aspect as well. So these are some of my go-to strategies that I've been sharing on LinkedIn on various different people's LinkedIn posts. Like, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And then last resort is, well, if you also, one thing is, if you're not finding the talent you're looking for, I think you need to do an audit of your recruitment process, your strategy, your job posting. You need to do an audit, because clearly what you're doing is not working. So there needs to be a fix. Tracy, your strategies.
Well, to be honest, I think networking is probably one of the biggest things I say to a lot of the clients that I'm working with. I focus mainly with small and medium-sized businesses that don't always have HR to fall back on or a recruiter to fall back on. So they have typically used recruiting agencies, and that's a conversation for another day. But I think sometimes, they just default to a recruiting agency, and they're paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And to your point, they're not getting the employer branding from that. Yeah. So we always talk to our folks about making sure that they have a social media presence, finding out where their ideal candidates are hanging out. And to really put the effort in there. I find a lot of times that's an overlooked component of recruiting, because a lot of times companies, like I say this all the time, recruiting sort of a book that they keep on a shelf and they pull down when they need it, and they forget that it's a dynamic, everyday activity. Whether you have an active position or not, you've got to make sure that you're reaching candidates so that you have a passive pipeline, like you said, to pull from when you need. As I've actually, with a few clients of mine, I've gotten them to do guest speaking jobs, whether if it's at a college or a university, those types of things. Have a presence in the market that they're looking within. So in the community, have those outreaches so that you are front of mind for candidates when they're starting to look.
And also, just to like what you're saying, just to add on to what you're saying, like, another perfect example is associations. Be a guest speaker at the different industry associations to attract the talent you're looking for your organization, and be willing to do it for free.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, this is it. And it's something that I think people forget is something that is, that's where people are gathering. And so that, people start to watch you. And it's funny because LinkedIn is a great spot for that, where you can passively look without committing yourself to any specific organization. So the more of a presence you have on these social media platforms, you start to, intrigue people. Like, and I'll tell you, there's a company that caught my attention strictly because of what they do on LinkedIn and Instagram, funny enough. And that's it's an ice cream place. I don't want to say their name because I don't know if I should, but anyways, it's an ice cream place. And they have just transformed ice cream for me. And in how that they're interacting with, they're showcasing employees. They're making, if for lack of a better word, they're making ice cream really a cool place to go and work, right? So I think investing in that time is important. And then I also think, once we start getting traction and candidates applying, I think really focusing on, and I know it's a trigger word a buzzword that everybody's using, is the candidate experience. Just because you don't move forward with somebody today doesn't mean they're not going to be somebody that you're considering tomorrow. Yeah. So I think a lot of times when we're recruiting, whether we're HR folks, talent acquisition folks, or a small business owner, we're really sometimes only in the moment. We're not thinking bigger picture. And that's where, like you said, having a recruiting strategy and really focusing too on the job posting itself. I think that becomes something where I said, I don't know if you heard me, but a lot of companies will post and pray, right? We take a job description. I did it. I am 100% guilty of it. I used to do it. I would take a job description, I would copy it, and I would post it on
Yeah,
it.
a lot of people do that.
Yeah,
I never did that.
yeah. That's how I learned. I learned it's
Actually,
bad.
I never, maybe in the beginning, my beginning career, because I was a newbie, but
Yes.
as I started to develop, grow into my profession, I never did that, and I never do this either now. And I'm glad, like I didn't. I think I didn't because I was like,
That's okay.
so flustered because I was running late to come on to
It's
the
okay.
show. But yes, like your job posting is a marketing pitch. It's your marketing pitch. And you're right. I see this all the time where companies just copying and pasting it.
Yep.
I never did that. So because I never did that as a HR professional in the corporate world, I don't do that with my clients. I'm like, no, it's a marketing. We can't just copy and paste it. It needs to be designed to speak the lingual language of the talent you're trying to attract. But there needs to be like, it can't just be, here's who we are and here's what you'll be doing. That's boring. Like no one even reads it. But if you like what I usually do is I understand the role. Here's what I like, my recruitment strategy is, before we even get to the job posting, I think a lot of companies don't do this. I think a lot of companies don't take the time. And we did this project with 911 operators, and that's what they were struggling with. Like that, they had an expensive recruitment process. Like if anybody wants to see an expensive recruitment process, like they had it, because it's 911 operators, and they were spending so much money into the recruitment process because it's so it's not about lengthy, but like, because to become a 911 operator, you have to go through a lot of things, clearance and stuff, and then you have to go through training. So let's say they got 10 people into the pre-training, maybe one or two would like actually stay, because it's not an easy job to do. So we worked on this project, and what we discovered was they weren't pitching the role properly. They were saying, copying and pasting the job description, but the role isn't for everybody, because the stress, like you're not giving a clear picture. So we created a whole strategy on how to do that. But one of the things we did was we also made a candidate profile, candidate profile, which no one is doing.
No, they're not.
Just copy and paste, like, okay, let's sit down, let's make a job description, okay, let's post it, let's do it on Indeed, let's do it here. So it's so busy posting, but no one's sitting there and saying, okay, what is the job? So do a job analysis. What is it that the person going to be doing? Identify the needs and wants. Is it permanent, full-time contract? Like a lot of people are reactive to it. Then sit there and develop a candidate profile. Candidate profile is more detailed to emotions, feelings, strengths, weaknesses, like not strength and weaknesses, but the ideal, like personality fit, what kind of character, like that's what we did with 911, right? We sat there and said, okay, let's build a candidate profile, because we need to know what kind of individual will be successful in the role. We need to determine and that's the key. You need to first also determine who will be successful. So build that candidate profile, and then you can now go build a marketing strategy. A lot of companies, employers out there don't build marketing strategies. They go straight to, okay, we're going to post a position, but you got to build a strategy, a marketing campaign. You got to build a campaign to market the role, to attract the talent, just like it's a sales process.
It is. No, it is. And it's funny. I'm so glad you brought up candidate profile, because I have had that. And this is why I was saying, I learned early in my career, the copying and pasting of a job description, it doesn't work, right? Because it just garners you either people that just don't have anything to do with the job. They see the title and they click, or they just don't respond at all. The candidate profile has been such a cornerstone to everything I do or have done as an HR professional. And I've brought it along with me in my consulting role now. And it really helps focus, especially hiring managers who have this pie in the sky idea of what they want in a candidate. But when you really get to the nuts and bolts of the job, and who that candidate is that we're looking to attract, then you, like you just said, you can get very targeted and very specific on your job posting, where you go to attract these folks and how you do it, right? And I think that has got to be the number one. I often say to folks, it might seem extremely rudimentary when we're doing it, right? But it is the most important part. And then, I actually have used that candidate profile then to amend job descriptions, because it becomes such an important component. And I've also used it to then devise, proper interview guides to go along with that job, so that we get very targeted. And to your point about quality over quantity, when you do recruiting properly, you will start, you may not get, hundreds of people applying, because you're going to get the folks that are applying that are specific to that job. Exactly. And one of the things I say, and it's funny, it became sort of a tagline for us a couple of years ago. I said, if you're a duck, be a duck. Like, don't try to be a duck dressed up as a swan, because then your job postings come across as this, and people are expecting this, and then they come and you're just a duck. And there's nothing wrong with being a duck. Just embrace who you are. And then you'll start to attract the folks that are meant to work with you,
Also, one key thing is that you got to change with the times, right? Mm-hmm. So now we are seeing, hence the Great Resignation. You can be adamant. Like, I was talking to one potential client, and I was like, afterwards, obviously I said, I can't work with you. And it was because the individual was so adamant that the person has to come to the office. Because I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time for this. I need them in the office. And I was like, okay, but why though? Because you're going to lose out on good quality candidates by you saying, no, you don't have time to sit and teach them this or go on Zoom. But that's the reality that we're living in. Like, if you are going to be stubborn and fixated on, no, you have to come to the office, you're going to lose great people, because that's what the pandemic has taught people, is that you don't need to go to the office to do your job. You don't. Yeah. And I think that's something very crucial, and that's where companies are struggling too. So, but I also seeing a lot of companies are taking advantage and saying remote work, and remote work. So anyone that's saying remote work, I'm pretty sure they're not struggling to get talent. It's those rigid companies that are still rigid in their ways and saying, no, you got to come to the office. And without realizing that what you're doing is you're losing out on candidate. You think that, no, people should just be happy to have a job. That's not the playing field that we're working in anymore. There's a big shift. So companies also need to wake up, and you need to change as per the times, right? You can't resist change. The more you're resisting it, you're losing out, right? You're losing on great talent. There's tons of great talented people out there, but are you designed to attract those talent, right? And one thing I want to highlight is, well, don't make up lies and fluffs. I see this all the time, also in job postings. But be realistic of what you're looking for. Don't aim for the moon and stars. Like, there's no such thing. And I think also that could also be a potential reason why some companies are struggling to find talent, because you're trying to aim for the 100% perfect candidate when that doesn't exist. There's no perfect candidate.
No, you're right. And people get really stuck, I find, in the requirement component, right? Like, if we move even outside of office work, and you look at even, like, for example, a skilled trade, they get so and I understand there's requirements. Yeah. But they get so honed in and focused on, like you just said, they want this when they can afford, maybe this, which is, there's nothing.
Yeah, I didn't even get to the affordability. You want someone in store, but you don't want to pay that either. But I have this, I don't believe in number of years experience. I think that needs to be totally removed from job postings, because it doesn't matter how many years of experience you have. It's all about the type of experience you have and what are you capable of doing. For example, I remember, like, my first HR job, I was in a mat leave coverage contract. My 1 year, and that's one recruiter gave me the best advice. She goes, your 1 year experience, and we worked closely together for a couple of positions that we were hiring. So she got to know me. She got to know what I do. And she goes, you're not, like, my title was an assistant, I was an assistant to manager. She goes, but you're not an assistant because you're not doing an assistant role. You're pretty much a business partner to your manager and to the units. You're
Mhm.
not an assistant. And at the time, actually at the time, there was no business partner roles. They used
Mhm.
to be called HR generalist,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So like, you're a journalist. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, so then she knew my contract was coming to an end. So she gave me the best advice. And she said, listen, you need to position yourself as an HR journalist. Don't put HR assistant on your resume because you're not an assistant. And that's going to be a misconception because what you are doing is a journalist role. And if she didn't give me that advice, guess what? I was going to position myself as an assistant. But she gave me that advice. I positioned my experience to align with HR journalist. And the next opportunity I got was a journalist, obviously big bump in my pay too. But if she didn't do that, and that's when I learned something as an HR professional, I'm like, oh my God, like you're getting so caught up and it has to be this many years experience. My 1 year of experience was equal to 5 years of HR journalist experience. But had she not given me that advice, I would have positioned myself as an assistant just with 1 year and be doing those little
Yeah.
level roles. But I was able to bump myself. And that was a good, I think, a learning moment for me as an HR professional that we can't get caught up on the number of years. It's about the type of experience someone has. And 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, I don't understand where that. I still this day would love for someone to tell me what quantifies someone 2 years, 5 years experience. What's the difference with 2 or 5?
Mhm. No, you're right. It's what they do in that 2 to 5, right? Like
Yeah,
I could have, like you just said, 2 solid years of senior experience, and somebody could have 5 years of maybe not as much. But if they've got the 5 years, oh, they're the kind of talent that I have to
people
have.
get, and a lot of people get caught up with that, right?
Yeah,
Fine. Like numbers, they're looking for numbers
yeah,
of experience, but not weighing out, well, someone's 2 years can easily equal 5. Like
yeah.
my 1 year equals some 5 years because it at back then it took 5 years to become a journalist.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
became a journalist within 1 year of my career. Second year of my career, I was in HR. I was already an HR journalist, right? So that was a big bump for me. So thank you to that recruiter, Tracy. Tracy was her name. I still remember her name. I know exactly what company she works for now.
Yeah.
So Tracy, thank you so much. But that's what I mean. We need the right mindset. We can't get caught up in numbers and think it's numbers. And that's, for me, was my biggest turning point. And that's why I've never done recruitment ever with the numbers. It's like, no, let's look at the experience. What type of situations has someone
Yes.
dealt with?
Yeah. It's the
Because I
situation.
could be a 5 year journalist and probably didn't deal with anything.
That's exactly my point, right? And then you have a whole host of transferable skills that people always overlook. And I find that gets extremely frustrating too. And they'll say, it has to be in this industry. These people need to come from my industry.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that thing I hated.
why? Like
I
we cut ourselves off and then complain that we can't find people. It just, to me, is just, it's like running on a treadmill or in a, one of those, being on a merry-go-round. We just keep going around and around because we're not willing to change, like you said, what our expectations are and get more realistic on what we really need, which the candidate profile to me is the end all and be all for most of what I do. Yeah.
the industry experience shouldn't matter because that's something you can train someone on, and a
Yeah.
smart, any person with, everyone can learn that. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say like 2 years, 3 years. Everybody is capable of learning. That's like a 1 day training or 2 day to get, okay, like to learn the products and the services. But here's the thing, I found that, like, I've worked in so many different industries, and every time when someone said no to me that you don't have this industry experience, just made me want that experience more. So I
Mm.
have a diverse industry experience, but I never understood that. Why does that matter? How does HR change from an industry? Like, I'm gonna take HR, IT. How does it change? Sure, you got to mimic, like, made little tweaks here, but when we talk about HR, which is a human function, people function, does
Mhm.
people's behaviors change from different industries? I never understood that. But also the beauty of getting diverse. And then we talk about diversity. Well, here's how you make your workforce diverse is hire diverse backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. It's so true, and it's amazing to me when you start to get the diverse backgrounds of people from different industries, and then you can grow, right? Your continuous improvement things can grow, systems change, you get better and bigger, instead of always having the same type of people doing the same type of job over and over and over again. It's just yeah,
That's
this
a good point, Tracy. Like if you're hiring the people from the same industry, guess what? Not you're not growing. You're gonna continue keep doing the same things. But when you hire somebody who doesn't come from that industry, they're bringing a different perspective. So they're gonna be able to see something that you've never been able to see because this person isn't coming from that industry. And
Mhm.
that is the biggest advantage and asset to any organization is to have someone outside of the industry to come in and hire them to do that 360. Like I honestly will give full credit the fact that I worked in manufacturing, my first job, that gave me a holistic 360 overview of HR because and I tell every HR person like you need to work at least once in manufacturing, like you become a solid HR
Oh man, I
professional
tell you,
because of the amount of things you need to deal with in manufacturing, and it's never a dull moment.
never.
Never, because the things you're dealing with, but it would just make you such a better I give full credit. I think I became a better HR for working in the HR, like in the manufacturing. But any other organization I went to that wasn't manufacturing, I was able to bring that different perspectives like, well, you're missing here, you're missing this, you're missing this, how about this and this, right? So you are in an advantage when you are hiring diverse backgrounds. The profession stays the same.
It pretty much does. It does, yeah.
Someone's talents in HR, like your skills in HR are gonna be the same, but the industries is different, but you get a different methods and experience. Like you can't it's just a huge asset. And
Hmm.
I always find it sad when companies and bankings do this the most. You don't come from bank industry, we're not looking at you.
Hmm.
Where you're just governments, not governments, kind of sometimes do it too, but it's just like you just lost out on a great talent.
Hmm. For sure. No, absolutely.
So we're gonna wrap it up. Actually, there's a comment. Are people as people work remotely, they can work for multiple employers. The new business model in play is to hire independent contractors and to manage my results and to manage my by results. Loyalty cuts both ways. In the past, employers were quick to downsize in order to meet their business needs. Today, people do not want to be held hostage by the man. You know what? This is actually a really good point. I think that's probably where the market's shifting to is that, with all the layoffs and people losing their jobs and uncertainty has made people become freelancers on the side and pick up gigs.
Yeah.
That now we're also seeing that where maybe some people don't want to work for just one employer and they want to be independent contractor. What
Yep.
do you think, Tracy?
No, I absolutely agree. I think that's what I have when I've a lot of the research I've done when it comes to the sort of the Great Resignation is the gig economy itself. I think a lot of people realize there is somebody just did a post for me and it was a really good one. We used to have work-life balance and now it's more like life-work balance. And I think there is freedom in, and I think a lot of folks are willing to maybe go down to one income or take a little bit less money because they want their time, like you said earlier. They don't want to be held hostage to an organization and feel like they can't move and they can't do things, and if a child's sick they can't go look after that. I think there's been a complete shift in how people look at work. And so I do think there's been a huge, I think, explosion of folks doing independent work, and it just makes sense. And it would make sense, I think, for some organizations for certain jobs to look at that and say, do I actually need a full-time employee in here, or can I actually take an independent contractor?
Yeah, I do that with my clients too. I'm like, well, it sounds to me you don't really have a full-time need yet.
Yeah.
What you have a need is someone you need help with like a few hours a day or week. So why don't you hire a contractor for part-time basis? And then as the need grows, you can evolve that role. But so many people get boiled down to like, no, I want full time.
Yeah.
Where
Well,
you
I
don't
think they think there's some sort of like loyalty, for lack of a better word. If they're here full time, then they're going to dedicate all their time to me. And I think it's just a farce. I think that's how it may have been 30 years ago, but it's just not the way that, the new generation coming in, and some of the folks that are already in, established professions, they just don't want that anymore. And I think the last couple of years, and I hate to say the pandemic did that, but I think there was a bit of an awakening, where people were like, I don't need this anymore. And you're really quick, I think it was Andrew just said, you're really quick when you need to lay off and you need to cut back. You're real quick to cut me off, and I think that, employees have now said, I'm going to be quick to say no if it doesn't suit me.
Yeah. And that's where everything, that biggest shift that we're seeing and more companies are struggling to find talent is this. This is the exact reason. It is the pandemic, and people are, they don't want to rely the entire source of the income with one employer. If they can diversify that portfolio and make a couple of other sources of income, that's like the smartest thing to do. And I tell people all the time, it's so funny because as an HR professional, I've been saying this for years to candidates and giving advice. Companies are so quick to, I go, when a company needs to downsize, I go, I've done layoffs. It's not the easiest decision to make, but it's a business decision that needs to be made, and they will make it. They're not going to sit there and say, this person's great, this person's been working with us for X amount of years, well, we're going to keep them. No, they need to cut headcount. They're cutting headcount, right? So it's not even about loyalty. It's just a business transaction. So I'm glad that pandemic happened and shook up the career professionals to like, well, hey, I don't want to be in this position, so I need to create a whole nother income for myself. And that's what we're also experiencing as well. We're gonna wrap it up.
Yes.
Ending remarks, Tracy.
I just think when it comes to, when we're doing recruiting of any type, I think that, really spending the time and understanding the type of candidate that you actually need versus what you want, and getting very crystal clear on that, I think will then help sort of drive the strategy of where you're going to post, how you're going to post. And I also think maybe if we can go through a candidate profile and start to eliminate some of our absolute, pie in the sky dreams for the folks that we're trying to hire, and get very realistic, I think, and get more targeted and not expect quantities of people, and they get more of a quality for our job, I think we'll have much more success when we're recruiting.
Yeah. And just to add on to what Tracy just said, so those are great tips. Also, develop a marketing strategy that goes beyond the job posting.
Yes.
Don't just rely on job posting anymore. It's not going to cut it anymore. You need to build a recruitment strategy, marketing campaigns. You need to build a whole brand element to each of the roles. Start branding your employer branding. Use also, turn your employees into brand ambassadors. Develop those LinkedIn profiles for your employees. Build your employees' brands. And, if any company needs help with LinkedIn branding, feel free to reach out to me. I can help your entire team build their personal branding on LinkedIn. Each employee needs to be branded. It's one of the things that you're going to need now going forward. You can't just have HR or just your company branded. You need to also utilize HR needs to have a brand on LinkedIn. Your employees need to be branded to your organization. So elevate your employees to build their brands on LinkedIn so you can attract that talent to come into your organization, because your current employees are the perfect example of why someone needs to work with you. So build your employer brand, build personal branding for the HR team, recruiters, as well as your employees, as well as the managers. Everyone needs to have a brand presence on LinkedIn, and you will see a whole big shift happening where you can attract the talent to come to you, and as well as do some headhunting. And if you need any help, Tracy and I are both experts in attracting and retaining talent. If you need further assistance, guidance in talent attraction, feel free to reach out to Tracy. French brown now.
Well, it's French now. Yeah,
French
was
now.
brown.
Was brown earlier.
I'm still transitioning.
And feel free to reach out to me, Gurpreet Kaurman. HR Superhero is my company name. Tracy, what's your company name? Talent Attraction and Retention Expert. Team.
TART. We say TART for short because it's fun.
So both of us are running our own HR consulting businesses. Feel free to reach out to any one of us on LinkedIn. We'll be more than happy to assist any companies out there with the recruitment needs. Talent is the key to the success of your organization. So make sure you handle that with care. All right. So on that note, we will end the segment. We will be back next Thursday, 11 a.m. with another HR topic on our segment called HR Uncut. So have a good afternoon and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, guys.
Bye.